Welcome to the In Shape Fitness Show. I am Coach Kim, and today's podcast is about fitness choices, or more specifically, the paradox of fitness choices. I had the privilege of watching a program on TED, the TED Talk program, about this issue, and it's not about fitness, but it was the paradox of choice as it relates just in general to consumerism and how Western societies have become less healthy, more unhappy, and of course, but generally speaking, more affluent and economically stable in most cases across the spectrum, I guess, of different subgroups or whatever. But anyway, this guy, and it was like one of the first TED Talks, so it's not as fancy looking as some of the TED Talks that come out now. And I have a friend, a state lawmaker in New York State, that went on TED, and the sort of backdrop to getting her on this stage and doing all of the work to prepare for it, to memorize the speech. And there wasn't a PowerPoint behind her or whatever. She was just talking about girls and menstruation and the use of tampons and things in like schools and laws that relate to stuff like that. And all the work that went into it, and how sort of fancy and appointed it was as a video program, was so different than what this guy's name is Barry Schwartz, and his TED Talk was in 2005, so a really long time ago, one of probably the first TED Talks. And he's talking about the paradoxes of choice, and he's talking about how you go into the examples he uses really hit home to me, because in health, I talk to clients about food a little, not a ton, but I do talk about things like the number of salad dressings there are in the grocery store. And this in this TED Talk, he talks about this, and it's really amazing. I don't even remember what the number was he came up with, but he counted there was like 120 salad dressing options in his local grocery store. And I think about that. 100 plus, even 100, even 75 or 50 seems like a lot of options in terms of salad dressing. So many options that it's really not a choice at that point, right? Then it's more like little tiny attributes maybe on a label, or maybe a particular flavor or a particular brand that you are, somewhat committed to. But in this TED Talk, Dr. Schwartz talks about salad dressings and how superfluous, how the sort of overwhelming the aisle is when you walk down it, and then he talks about different components. I'm going to mention them in just a minute because I do want to get to fitness. But the other thing that this great story he told about how unhappy he was after an experience with respect to shopping was when he went to buy a pair of jeans, and he goes into a store and he's just looking for a simple pair of jeans, and he laments about how jeans are like, this really interesting piece of clothing that we wear in modern society. And at the beginning of the when you first bring them home from the store, at least this is the way it used to be, they were kind of rigid and not real comfortable. They felt weird. And you had to wash them, lots and lots and lots of times until they finally started to fit properly. So he goes in, he's worn out this pair of jeans. He goes into the store and he says, I need to buy a pair of jeans to the salesperson. The salesperson says, well, what kind do you want? Do you want boot cut? Do you want flare cut? Do you want straight cut? Do you want skinny jeans? Do you want distressed jeans? Do you want stone wash or acid wash or, zip fly or button fly? And he's just completely taken aback by all the different choices and really, really frustrated. And he commits to this purchase, however, and spends a couple of hours trying on dozens of pairs of jeans. And then he finally comes out of the store and he has bought a pair of jeans, and he loves them. He finds that they fit them better than he's ever felt a pair of jeans fit him when they first come out of the store. However, he's really depressed about his consumer experience. Like, he's really let down because of 4 things that he lists in this TED Talk, which I want to relate to fitness. Because when you think about activity levels if you're a sedentary person, if you are a person that moves in terms of fitness because you know you have to, as opposed to, for some other reason, some social reason or some charitable reason, like a charitable fundraising run or something, or because you like an activity, like you like playing tennis, you like to play golf. So if you are a sedentary human being and you have to exercise because you're overweight and you want to lose the weight, or you are starting to experience health conditions that are caused by your sedentary life, or too much eating relative to the amount of movement in your life, or your doctor has made the recommendation or whatever, now you are faced with this sort of overwhelming sense of choice in terms of the different types of fitness that you can try, the different types of fitness clubs that you can join. And so this Dr. Schwartz talks about the four elements of the negative side of choice. So choice for a lot of people, I am going to get to those four things in just a second. Choice to a lot of people is like the ultimate in American ideals. It's freedom, individual right and duty, individual responsibility, and individual choice. Those are kind of all part of the same, kind of ideal sphere of our existence in the westernized sort of liberal political schematic that we adopted as a country. Individual freedom. So you get to choose because you have the right to, because you have the ability to take care of yourself, agency to take care of yourself. And when you strike out to exercise, to be fit, then you look at all of your choices and then you make a choice and you commit to it. But it doesn't really work that way. And this is where we have reached kind of a paradox, where we've reached this tipping point maybe where the number of choices that we have may actually hinder the outcomes that we want. And I'll say that again. The number of choices that we have may hinder the outcomes that we want. And that is because there are too many choices in some ways. Now, I will be the first to tell you, when it comes to activities, like things to do in your life, activities, recreational activities, athletic activities, I could never feel like I have too many choices because I have so many interests. I love climbing trees. I love skipping down the sidewalk. I love jogging. I really do like to move around at a comfortable conversational jogging pace. I enjoy swimming. I enjoy tennis. I like hiking and biking. Throwing a frisbee, throwing a ball, catching a ball. Pretty much anything and everything I think is fun, and I want to do it. My only problem is I don't have time to do them all. But if it's down to the specifics, back to whether if you are a sedentary human being and you need to exercise because you've reached a point in your physical life where your body's health is on the line, then what do you do? Do you go to a big box gym and get on an elliptical machine, or get on a treadmill or a stationary bicycle? Do you join a yoga studio? Do you go to a boot camp? Do you lots of different choices. And when it just comes down to it, there's a fatigue, a consumer decision-making level of fatigue that we reach when we have more choices than we can properly, logically evaluate. Those four things that relate to the misery that people feel when they have so many choices are number one is consumer regret. Meaning, and he used the reference to the, to his jean shopping experience as part of this. The regret comes, sort of in, it's like the, the high, the euphoria you feel when you're making the choice, but then you kind of, just afterwards, you question whether it was the right choice. Because there were so many other options that you said no to. It's really important to recognize when you say yes to something, you are saying no to a bunch of other things. You have to be confident in that yes. Otherwise, you're going to feel regret. And with respect to fitness, because it is not a comfortable state of consumerism that most people find themselves in. I mean, we should really make our peace with that. It's okay, because we are so unhealthy as a society. More people are overweight, and more people are morbidly obese and really, really overweight than in any time in history, and therefore need exercise, some level of fitness in their lives more than ever, but don't really know, like have a level of understanding, a level of education and confidence in making choices about how to move, what to do, how to do what to do. So the anticipated level of regret paralyzes people sometimes. It really is a paralysis, a mental paralysis. You just simply don't choose. Why put yourself through it? I know you must feel that. If you feel that and you're curious to get my take on how to reverse the paralysis, definitely get in touch with me. I'd be happy to. This would not cost you anything, but you can send me an email through bodybyInShape.com. I'd be happy to just give you a couple of tips in terms of making good choices about all the different options that you have. So that was the one thing. So it's the regret, or the anticipated level of regret in making a choice when you have so many options. The second thing that he talked about, remember there are 4 things. I'm going to try to get through them all here and talk a little bit more about a couple of ways to evaluate your choices and specifically in functional fitness. The opportunity cost of evaluating all of the options is a significant barrier to making good decisions in fitness. That means what that means. Now, that to some people this is okay, and I think if you are pretty young and you don't have a family, sort of like tied down to a family or tied to, we're all basically tied to our jobs. But if you're not super crazed with your job, it might be kind of fun to try out a lot of different fitness options, and there are even really low cost ways to do that and never have to fully invest in a particular style or a particular modality, I guess, if you will, in terms of exercise. But if you are looking for a pathway, like a consistent level of a relationship with a particular activity or a particular space in terms of an activity, that does take some evaluation. It takes a little bit of research, some work, maybe, talking to some people that have done it before, thinking about the different outcomes that are typical, what risks are associated with a particular activity, and on and on. So there is an opportunity cost if you are sitting at your desk, you have seen your doctor and he's told you that your blood pressure is going up, you are at risk for diabetes, which, by the way, is once you hit into your 40s, if you are a sedentary person, your chances of developing these lifestyle conditions goes up exponentially. You have to exercise. You have to move your body. And it doesn't have to be in a gym, but you do have to do something. So all the medicines in the world are, they might put it off. They might mitigate the symptoms that you develop for over a period of time, over a period of a long time. But ultimately, it's not sustainable to live that way. You've got to have movement in your life. Okay, so the third thing is something that I find kind of interesting in a different part of my life, which is in public education, because I'm involved as an elected official on the school board in New York City. And one of the things we talk about a lot is choice in making choices of schools, as opposed to, the way it worked when I was a kid was that I lived in a particular place, and that meant that I went to a school, an elementary school, and then a junior high, and then a high school. And that was it, right? But now you have, where I live in Harlem, in New York, if I go and stand outside on the corner of my block, when my kid was in kindergarten, I had 11 choices for elementary school. And that doesn't even count the choice that we ultimately ended up with, which was a school a little farther away from our neighborhood, that had a program that I really thought was good for my daughter, my kid. So I talk about it in terms of education, but this component of it I find interesting, because what we do with our family sometimes is we have these expectations. The escalation of expectations is this third element of dissatisfaction we have with the copious amount of choice that we have. The escalation of expectations. The escalation of expectations in terms of fitness. If you, by the way, you make a commitment to a particular activity or to a particular gym or whatever, or to someone like myself, in terms of being, having the anchor sessions. I've talked ad nauseum on these podcasts about how you target, like label each workout that you do, and they don't always have to be the same, but the long teaching types of sessions that I do are called anchor exercise routines. And so the escalation of expectations is just simply that, because you've done all of this opportunity cost work, all of this research work and background, you've made a commitment, you've said no, you realize you've made your peace with the fact you've said no to other things, and now here you are, you've landed on something that you're trying, and so your expectation for it to be a success is immeasurably high, and really is at battle, butts up against the reality of anything in your life, because there are ups and downs to pretty much every part of our existence on this earth, including, from the moment you wake up until you hit the day at the end of the day to, over longer periods of time. The ups and the downs are part of every person's life. And so to have expectations that are so high that you are never pleasantly surprised, but you're always somewhat disappointed because your expectations are, at that level of perfection, is an unfortunate side product or byproduct of the multiple choices that we have. So we've had the first three: the regret, the opportunity costs, the escalation of expectations, and we've arrived now at the last of these reasons why innumerous choice can blow, can backfire on you. And that last one is the sort of depressive nature that we feel. We blame ourselves if we don't, if the experience ends up being negative. So we've kind of come full circle here, where we sometimes are paralyzed by the number of choices, and we don't make the choice, which is what happens a lot in fitness. People know that it's going to be hard, and they know they have a lot of options. They know that they can make a commitment to something, but then once they start down that path, they realize that it's a little overwhelming, and therefore they end up paralyzed by the number of choices, and so they therefore don't make a choice. But coming full circle, we arrive back at the point now where you do make the choice. Your expectations, so you've invested in the opportunity costs. The expectations are really high. You have thus experienced some letdown because your expectations are so high. And then because of the letdown, you blame yourself. You feel depressed by having made potentially a big mistake. And therefore, you get back to the beginning of the cycle again. But this time you are handicapped to an even deeper degree when you have to go and make another choice. And it is so unfortunate. I know people say that they don't have time to exercise. They don't have time to be healthy because they are so busy. And that is true. That is very true. I am too busy to exercise, and you are too busy to exercise. But when it really comes down to the outcomes that matter in terms of your quality of life, are you too busy to not exercise? And I think the answer to that question is also yes. So where you get from too busy to do something to too busy to not do something is a really interesting tipping, or sort of a very sort of sensitive, permeable, membranous dynamic between not making the choice and making the choice, especially when it comes to your health. And I say that, as diplomatically as I possibly can. I probably sound like a politician a little bit in terms of it, but it is the truth that both not making the choice and making the choice are difficult. But the problem is that we've evolved into a society where our healthcare costs are too high, and we are only focusing on fixing problems that we have developed. We are not able to, or we're not taking the time to anticipate what those issues are going to be and act in accordance with that anticipatory knowledge in order to improve the sustainable outcomes that we want to see in the future. And that is what everyday exercise is all about. Every day, I mention this all the time, and if you listen to my the workout channel, AM Muscle Maintenance workout channel, I do a workout every single week that doesn't include equipment, that takes typically no longer than 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but mostly that's just me editorializing during the podcast. But the short 15 to 20 minute sessions, regimens that you can do in your home, in your pajamas. I exercise in my pajamas every single day. You're much better off in terms of your energy balance, in terms of your, desk metabolism, right? Desk level metabolism is a kind of an important part, because it's not your base metabolism, the metabolism that you can kind of count on. Essentially, when you wake up in the morning, it's the metabolic rate that you've been burning through your sleeping period in the evening. This is a little higher than that. And it can be a lot higher than that if you get up in the morning and you rev up your engines and stimulate all of your muscles and activate all of your joints and your vestibular system. You can sit and burn more calories, and you can prepare your body for this, sort of extended periods of time where you're not going to be able to move around as much as you'd like. But it is important to do something every single day. So, the paradox of choice, today's lesson, if you choose to accept it, to take it all in, there is a paradox within fitness choice. There are no real bad options. There are risky options, of course, and you have to weigh out your risks based on your medical history, your capabilities, your age, your various other components that relate to your individualism that I can't even speak about right now. But your there aren't really bad options when it comes to activities that you can engage in, especially ones that get you out of your life, your comfort zone life, in terms of your office and your home, and bring depth of experience into your existence, especially with your family, social bonds, and community bonding within the scope of things like hiking and sightseeing, and just sort of moving about your community gardening, community cleanups of marshes and various things like beaches and things like that. All that stuff is good for everybody. So incorporate some of your movement interests into some of your sort of larger scale life interests, and perhaps the choice won't seem so meaningless. But definitely let me know if you have questions about whether or not you're able to do something, or if you have questions about the number of choices that you are trying to evaluate. I'd be happy to help you out with that. As I said, get in touch with me at bodybyInShape.com, and I will see you again very soon. I'll be back next week with another new podcast. Have a great day.